In the midst of writing this assignment, I went for a walk to think about it, as I usually do with most things, and a dead woodpecker fell out of a tree onto the ground in front of me. And I feel like this is something that doesn't normally happen to normal people, but I also think that's a pretty good analogy for environmental education, where you just show up to work, you have the craziest day of your life, and that's just Tuesday. But anyway, I tried to Google to figure out if it meant something bigger, and Google told me it was a sign of growth and change. I felt that was very fitting for this project, but that's also probably just what Google tells you regardless of what dead animal you put in the search bar. My whole career in education thus far has been very easily sorted into two categories: sage on the stage, or very serious naturalist, where I knew or had to know every answer to the universe, or I was solely an entertainer, where I was doing these hyper scripted programs for a nature center, and there wasn't really any room for student input or anything like that. And during our intro to teaching seminar, I realized that I could really easily thread the needle between the two. Neither end of the spectrum was a comfortable place for me to be in, and becoming a guide on the side has really helped me sort of be able to lean back and allow students learning to happen more organically and naturally. And this seminar, in combination with the observations and teachable moments seminar, has really helped me learn how to effectively step back and let the surroundings do the teaching for me, but in a way that's structured and planned. And then also classroom management has been a big thing for me. Up until now, I always thought it was something that was based on luck, that if your students walked in the classroom and they were willing to learn, then everything else would happen organically. And so far, that belief has worked out for me before coming here. And then I kept getting questions from other fellows and stuff of oh, what do you do when your students won't answer your questions, or they just won't participate in your activities? And I've truly never had it ever happen to me. So I just kind of made up some advice that I've never taken myself. And then one day I had a group challenge with class where it was pulling teeth. Could not get the students to answer. None of the activities were really, vibing with the students. And that was the first time where I was okay, we've got to take this seriously. And so I think the combination of those three seminars have been really helpful in sort of being this is your role as an educator, or what you could be as an educator. And also you owe the class an obligation to make it good. If not just luck, you do have to try. So those three were a really important combination for me. Okay, let's revisit English class for a moment. The great William Shakespeare once said, "To be or not to be? That's the question." More specifically, a broad one that reaches the top of Bloom's taxonomy. Questioning has been one of my favorite things to talk about, and before the seminar, I was trying to really dig deep on these questions and ask my students better questions. How many times can I say questions in a sentence? But I was already having these really insightful conversations with students, particularly in Oneota and Settler Life. And I think kids are already so naturally curious that I just I love having these conversations with them. And I was really excited for this seminar to kind of dig into that more and have more of those moments. And not only has it made me a better question asker in class, but it's also helped me improve my own self-reflection questions when I go home at the end of the day and think about my classes. But also, it's brought me to my biggest question that I've had to face: how do you become a deaf educator? And there's no answer to that. There's no blueprint, no seminar on answers, no mentor to coach you through a disability. And this question has been in the back of my mind over the last few years. I've been struck from canoe programs. I wasn't allowed to talk about my disability. I've been the target of systemic ableism in the field. And overall, it just has not been easy. But this past few months have been the first time I've been able to be outspoken about it. And every other job has required me to be normal. It's been clunky at times, but I think it's been overall a good thing for both me and my students. One class I taught, the students had just learned how to fingerspell and ASL back at their own school, and they came up to me at the end of class to show me that they could spell their names, and it was very sweet, made me very emotional, but also made me wish that they did that when I asked them for their names in the beginning of class. That has helped me remember better. And then during a recent day trip, I had a student using an FM system, and his teacher complimented me on how well I was using it. And I shared with her that I grew up using one too, and it always frustrated me when adults stumbled around with an FM system and not being able to use it properly. And I had a really good conversation with that student about how frustrating it is to use an FM system and how ultimately it's the biggest piece of baggage you could ever carry, an actual huge microphone. People always tell me that it must be such a privilege to be a role model. And the truth is, I never feel like one. I don't know how to be one. I've actively resented this for most of my life. And how do you turn around and tell someone else that it's all right and it all works out? Maybe that's my next question. How to be a role model. To tie it all together, the learning theory of constructivism, learning through experiences, social interactions, and prior knowledge, that is something that we go through every single day of our lives as human beings. Our students go through it during their 3 days with us, and in a much larger picture, we go through it during our year as fellows. And, 12 people living together with 12 different life paths, experiences, opinions, has been one of the biggest learning opportunities of a lifetime. And, it's moments like these where, being able to bounce ideas off each other, failing next to each other, and just like, I don't know, there's been so many opportunities where I think no one could have possibly gone through this, and I'm often wrong. I've learned so much from the people around me, and I always thought that learning was always a solitary thing. All throughout high school, you just like cram yourself into your bedroom and, spend hours on your social studies homework or whatever. But learning is done best in a community. And I think I've learned that a lot here. Trying to give other people grace and hoping they give me that in return. And just overall, just like learning from each other. I think it's been awesome. I love public speaking, maybe too much. I was a captain of a speech team in high school and quickly dove into the world of stand-up comedy when I was in college. I already felt comfortable on a stage, so the presentation techniques seminar really helped me refine and pay attention to my weaker spots, while including my strengths as well. And I have done a lot the past few months in terms of presentation techniques. I've been working away at perfecting my naturalist program. I presented a 3-hour workshop at a conference, and I've been working away on my stand-up comedy. Even with CIG, I used a lot more presentation techniques than I expected. So, what's next? Nobody ever becomes a perfect educator, but I do really, really want to try. I am a perfectionist, after all. I'll be continuing strengthening my skills through intentional planning for classes, as well as keeping up on my post-class reflections, something that I've been doing for years already. But this time has been one of the best times for me ever in my career. The feedback and growth opportunities and ability to constantly try new things has been exactly what I needed. I feel the most fulfilled I've ever been as an educator, and I hope to keep this up into the new year and beyond. This is Colby. Colby, would you like to say anything? Very controversial. Thank you.